Delver 2nd Edition, by rpgnatalie, is a very strange dungeon crawling tabletop RPG, in a world that forgets its history, its life, and itself, all consumed by the dungeon, for whatever reason you went in there for: power, memory, truth, redemption. Do remember, never forget who you are, or else the world will forget you. Yeah, this is gonna be weird already. So how do you play this game? Well, first you gonna want some d6, and something to write on, because you will be doing a lot of writings with this book. But first, let's start by making a character. I will explain the game mechanic as we go. Upon making a character, you get 3 stats, or records of spirit and flesh as the game calls it: health, stamina, and focus, all at 10. Health is your health, don't let it depletes to nothing. Stamina is your short-term energy, you will be using it to perform actions, it restores itself quickly. And focus is a more long-term energy resource, which you spend to perform actions of particular difficulty and intricacy, like casting spells or boosting your attack. It can only be restored during downtime. You also get to pick 4 things to build your characters at the start. Background determines your background, obviously, and also gives you your starting gears, whether that's weapons, items, spells, or something else. And as you venture through the dungeon, you can easily pick more things up. Just make sure you don't pick up too much stuff or you will get tired easily. Gifts are benefits to further differentiate your characters from your friends. They can be very helpful. Raiments are purely aesthetic and can't be damaged or lost. It's your own self-image, your own memory of how you look like. Do not lose it. And finally, your goals, whether that's your character's goal to earn experience, or the party's goal to finish the play completely, you can write your own one just fine. No need to follow the list here. Now that you got your characters, let's dive into the dungeon. But first, when starting a play session, you gotta figure out who's the oldest in your group, as they will be the one to describe how the entrance to the dungeon looks like and how the first room your group enters appear. That's right, the players get to decide how the dungeon feels and looks like. But remember, the world is kinda screwed up and the dungeon is absorbing the memories of everything, so the record keeper, the GM equivalent here, gets to decide what traps and dangers a room could potentially hold. Of course, when determining who is the oldest, you can just invent a trick called lying. Not like anyone remembers how old a person should have been anyway. While in the dungeon, the game is separated into 3 phases: exploration phase, combat phase, and downtime phase. The name should be self-explanatory, and the phases can be switched around by the party however they like, so long as the record keeper deem it to be possible. One thing you want to remember when playing in exploration phase and combat phase is that for some actions, what your character's wielding will affect your stamina cost. This is determined by the heft, or drain for magic spells when using them in combat, which also determines their focus cost. As you want to save up your stamina in case your party encounter combat, the person scouting for the next room as well as avoiding danger within will want to wield a light weapon or nothing at all. But in combat, while wielding a light weapon lets you attack more often and dodge more easily in a single round, you might have a hard time actually landing effective hits on enemies as you roll number of dice equal to your heft for attack, while a heavier weapon gets to roll more dice, and you only need 1 success. You can still hit even if you miss, but the cost can be heavy. Though if you just want to tank hits, you can use the goad and block options to take in hits that can first be reduced by your shield, if you have one, and your stamina before health, opening up enemies to attacks from your allies. Stamina also recovers differently in exploration and combat phase. They both recover fully when a round has passed, but while a round in combat phase pass when both sides decided there's nothing they can do, a round in exploration phase pass when all players have reached 0 stamina. There's almost no way you can reach that before encountering any combat, so conserving stamina as you explore a dungeon made up of lost and forgotten things is quite important. This stamina managing mechanic is so important to the gameplay loop that there's an action called swap weapon, which does exactly what it said and is available on both phases that costs 2 stamina to perform. This mechanic is honestly kinda a surprise, as when I read that Delver 2E is a surrealist dungeon crawler, I expect it to be a fully narrative-focused TTRPG. That's not quite the case. The combat basically plays out as a rule-light turn-based combat, with both sides taking simultaneous turns, while exploration and downtime phases are more on the narrative side. Speaking of narrative, let's talk about that. When exploring the dungeon, to get to a new room, you scout. Honestly, you aren't exactly physically moving to a new room so much as you are escaping from the previous one and the room just morphs around you. The dungeon could essentially be a gigantic metaphor. And in this new room, the players have to take turns answering the following questions: what is an interesting feature that it has, what does it smells like, what draws you to it, And how can you escape from it? The dungeon itself is made of lost forgotten memories, so of course the only way for the party to describe the dungeon is to make it up from whatever they could think of at the moment. Even when salvaging items, another action you can perform for 5 stamina, the item you get is proposed and described by the players, whether that's a new weapons or items or even something that can't just be described by tags. The item itself also leaks out its lingering memories of whoever last used it. Someone gets to describe it, and you want to write it down on something that can be deleted or destroyed. As for why, well, if you ever lost all your health in combat, you can burn memory to restore it, and burning memory of an item is one of the safer way to do it. You can also burn your memory, but can you say the you that was alive is still alive right now? If that's the case, just make sure not to burn the wrong things. If it seems like to you that the record keeper only really seems to play the threat in dungeon, you are probably correct. For the most part, the players are the one that creates the dungeon. It's the record keeper's role to keep things exciting with threat and fill the dungeon with mysteries that seem to link back all together. Playing as the record keeper here doesn't really feel like the game master, but more as one of the players, just that the record keeper's character is the many threats of the dungeon. There's even a section on doing the role of record keeper in entirely different ways, whether to share it or eliminate it completely. When the players find somewhere safe in the dungeon and want to take a break, it's time for downtime phase, which is much more different than the 2 other phases by the fact that you can only pick one options, whether that's to recover your wound, repair your tools, reflect upon yourself, which gain back focus to, or just connect with others. It's simply a moment to take a break, and write down your thoughts. And when the play ends, whether your party has completed the party goal or not, you simply exit the dungeon, but when you return, the dungeon and its danger will have changed completely, if you choose to return at all. And that's basically it on Delver 2e, a dungeon crawler about finding the lost and forgotten. I still do not understand what Surrealist means if you are asking. Delver 2e is strange. Of all the games I have reviewed before, this adjective fits it very well. It's set in a world where it's forgetting itself and there's a dungeon made out of forgotten memories and you are going in there to get it. There's many ways you can play that story and my brain is malfunctioning already. Is this what trying to comprehend surrealism feels like? I'm not sure if I'm comprehending it at all, which seems to be the one problem with the book because when I'm reading it alone, I feel like I just don't get it and struggle to do so. Still, it's an interesting dungeon crawler. Anyway, you can get it now on itch.io. That's all for now and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.